Hello sweet beans, my name is Soleil and welcome back to my channel. So I just finished the last book that I have been currently reading for the last 2 months. I've been in the middle of 3 books for all of the beginning of 2025 and now they're all done. So now I have nothing that I'm currently reading. I'm so excited and I'm going to celebrate by trying a chapter of a select number of fantasy books that I have been meaning to read and excited to read for months, years, days, all of the above. I haven't done one of these try chapter tag videos in quite a while, but I just saw Jade's from Jade Juniper and I got really excited to do one because it's been a while. So let's discuss the books that I'm going to be trying a chapter of. Also, fair warning, I'm going to be reading these probably over several days because reading a chapter from each of these books is going to take some time. First off, and this one is wild, let's not get too excited. I have the first book in the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. This is Final Empire. So originally, oh my god, it's 650 pages. Okay, everything's fine. So originally, I started reading, where is it? Where is that bastard of a book? The Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England. Didn't love it. I DNF'd it for now. I thought that was a good way to start my Brandon Sanderson journey. It apparently was not. And I was recently validated for those feelings. So I am going to instead just dive immediately in to the Mistborn series. I've been scared of it. I've been really excited to start it for many years now. And you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna try a chapter, see how I'm feeling, see if it's worth it, because I've been meaning to put in an order for a couple UK edition books, specifically The Language of Dragons, because the UK edition is gorgeous and I want my hands on it so badly because I can't wait to read that book. But while I'm doing that, I might as well get the other UK editions I've had my eyes on, and I have been meaning to get this full series in the UK editions, but I'm not gonna do that until I know if I'm actually enjoying this series, and I'm not gonna get the sequel until I've read the first book. Because I've made that mistake before. And I started reading the first one and I hated it, and then I already owned the sequel. Like, girl, what's going on? Anyways. So this is gonna be the first one. Then we have Immortal by Sulin Tan. This is the gorgeous Fairy Loot edition. So this is about Lien, who ascends to the throne, and she vows to end her kingdom's obligation to the fickle immortals who once protected them. There's also a dangerous alliance with the one she should fear and mistrust the most, the god of war, and treacherous attraction. So this sounds fantastic, absolutely up my alley. I've heard really good things about Sulin Tan. What's the other book or series that she wrote? Why doesn't it tell me? Ah, Daughter of the Moon Goddess. Yes, Daughter of the Moon Goddess series, which I've also been meaning to read. So this one sounds amazing. Then we have A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft. I've heard amazing things about this. This is about Lorelei, who is a folklorist with a quick temper, and she's on an expedition with 6 eccentric nobles in search of a mythical spring of untold power. The king wants to harness the fabled water source from which magic flows to secure his reign, and Lorelei is determined to prove herself and to make her dream come true, to become a naturalist able to travel freely to faraway lands. I think, is this one also queer? I think this one's queer. Or am I mixing up with the other? There's a similar book that has watery vibes. I might be thinking of that one. Am I thinking of A Study in Drowning? I might be. And we have Sorcery and Small Magics by Maiga Ducey. This one I've also been meaning to read. I think this is also the Fairy Loot edition. You will notice there's a lot of exclusive editions from Fairy Loot and Illumicrate boxes because that's where I get a lot of my fantasy books from my book subscription boxes, and they've been piling up for quite some time, and I've just been in a bit of a fantasy reading slump for like all of last year and the year before, and now I'm finally regaining my energy and I'm so excited. So that is why there are so many of them. Leovander Lovage is a master of small magics. He can summon butterflies with a song or turn someone's hair pink by snapping his fingers. Such minor charms don't earn him much adoration from other sorcerers or his father, but anything more elaborate always blows up in his face, which is why Leo vowed years ago to never again write powerful magic. And then, of course, something goes awry. Next up, we have one that I'm very excited to start, and that one of my friends, Kaylee, recently finished and told me was fantastic, which is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I haven't read Cassandra Clare in quite a few years. I used to be obsessed with the Mortal Instruments series, City of Bones, and all of that, but then at some point there just became too many books and it was just too much, and I tried to start rereading the series, but it's rough to start rereading the series at one point, you know, and I was just in a different phase of life at that time. So this is about two outcasts who have the power to change everything, but will they grasp the hand of destiny? In the vibrant city-state of Castlane, nobles and criminals have one thing in common: the constant search for wealth, power, and the next hedonistic thrill. Yet as an impoverished orphan, Kel's prospects look bleak, until he's stolen from his old life to enter a new one of luxury and peril. He's become the body double for Prince Connor, shielding the prince from all dangers. As his sword catcher, he and Connor will become as close as brothers, yet Kel lives for one purpose: to die for Connor. Excited about that. And then, oh my gosh, I recently talked about this one in my most anticipated releases of 2025 video, which is Water Moon, and this is a gorgeous edition from Illumicrate. Yes. I'm so excited about this one. This is the one where there's like a cool pawn shop. Yes. Would you rewrite your destiny if it meant losing a part of your past? On a back street in Tokyo lies a pawn shop, but not everyone can find it. Most will only see a cozy ramen restaurant, and just the chosen ones, those who are lost, will find a place to pawn their life choices and deepest regrets. Hana wakes on her first morning as the pawn shop's new owner to find it ransacked, the shop's most precious acquisition stolen and her father missing. Then into the shop stumbles a charming stranger quite unlike other customers, for he offers help instead of seeking it. Okay, so those are all of the books on this video's agenda. So I am going to now read a chapter from each of these and let you know my thoughts, my feelings as we go through the list. And we'll see. I'm gonna figure out what order I'm going in, because after rereading those synopses, I'm feeling much more excited about some than others. So I think we're going to do a little bit of a bell curve, and we're going to do a couple that I'm really excited about, the ones that I'm medium excited about, and then the ones I'm really excited about at the end again, so that it's a nice little sandwich of excitement. So without further ado, let's go. Okay, I read the first chapter. It was very short. It was only like 5 pages, and I thought about continuing to read, but to preserve the sanctity of the Try a Chapter challenge, I will stop here. But I really want to keep reading, which is a very good sign. So basically, in this first chapter, we get a very brief introduction to the main character, Hana, and her family, the pawn shop, the business, and the ensuing mystery, because she wakes up, she's hungover from the previous day of celebrating her father's retirement and her taking over the pawn shop of these life choices and regrets, and she realizes that something bad must have happened because she does not hear her father going about his routine. and it's so good and I want to keep reading. It was just a really great, brief, and inviting hook into a story. I want to gobble it up. I loved how straightforward and to the point the writing was, and I'm intrigued and I want to know more. So that was this one. And now on to the next selection, which is A Dark and Drowning Tide. Let's read. I just finished the first chapter of A Dark and Drowning Tide, and oh my god. This is so freaking good. Oh my god, I am obsessed with this. This is so amazing so far. So it starts off I just felt immediately immersed in this world. Alison Saft is so good at just tying in the world building so that it's not info dumpy, it's not over explained, but you don't feel confused. It's just beautifully braided into what the characters are doing and thinking, and oh, I absolutely love it. So you're immediately tossed into this world, and it's this university, and there's these two naturalists who are rivals and hate each other, and they're both competing to become like the chosen one that the king will take on this expedition. And then once they've done this expedition, there's all of these benefits that they basically have in society. So the main character, Lorelai, she is from a region in the kingdom that somehow differentiates her citizenship and her rights in the kingdom against everybody else's. So if she goes on this expedition and she gets this new title, then she'll be able to become a citizen, get a passport, and travel as a naturalist. So that's her main motivation. And it basically starts off with her tracking down her nemesis that she has to work with at like this river. And there is this really cool magic system where both of them can do magic, and there's these nixies that are kind of like siren mermaids who live in this river, and they're like trying to communicate with them, but the nixie is like trying to pull them into the water. Oh. All of this just happened in the first chapter, and I need to keep reading, but I can't because we have a challenge. Why did I think this was a good idea? This was a terrible idea. I want to read both Watermoon and A Dark and Drowning Tide now. It's not that I'm hoping that some of these books are duds, but like, I don't know if I can read all of these. Like, I really need to keep reading this one. It's fine. I'm going to do one more tonight, which is Immortal by Sue Tan. New plan. So I'm going to read the first chapter of this one, and then of these three, I'm going to choose one to keep reading tonight. And then later on, I will read the first chapter of the other four, and then pick a finalist from those four. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We can change the rules. This is our world. We can make these choices. We can do whatever we want to. And I just finished 3 books that I was reading, so there are open slots for at least 2 more, and I do need to start the new B.K. Borison First Time Caller book because my pre-order at my local independent bookstore just came in, and I get to pick it up this weekend. I'm very excited for that one, and I think 2 fantasies and a romance is a good mix. So that is the plan. Let's read. Y'all, I regret to inform you we have another banger on our hands. I made a clear mistake with this dry chapter challenge because I want to read all 3 of these, and this is only half of the books I was planning to try a chapter of. It's not that I thought there would be bad ones in this list. I mean, obviously I want to read all of these. That was the point of this, but I just thought that there would be, you know, one that really gripped me and the other ones were fine. You know, I mean, this is a good thing. This is a good thing. I'm enjoying all 3 of these. I want to read all 3 of these. I made a mistake. But it's fine. Let's talk about Immortal. So this one throws you immediately into the action. This chapter was like 10, 11 pages maybe, and you are just tossed immediately into excitement and adventure. You have no idea what's going on, but it all becomes clear, and it's just so fast-paced, and it feels like the dialogue is just snapping, and the description is just like pummeling you in the best way. So I'm going to keep one thing hidden as a secret. It's literally, I mean, obviously it happens in the first chapter, but it was just so exciting that I don't want to take that away from anyone. So I'm going to not mention that part, but you basically are thrown into this chapter where I think he's the emperor, and his granddaughter are fleeing the palace. You don't know who's chasing them, you don't know what's going on, you don't know why they're running, but you start to learn a little bit more that the granddaughter is sick with something. Somehow she ingested a type of poison from the land of the netherworld, which I think is a version of like an underworld. And there's only one cure, and the grandfather basically stole this lotus flower from this sacred area that basically the mortals cultivate for the immortals, for the gods. And that lotus is the only thing that might be able to save her. So the gods are hunting them down, and they're trying to escape, and that is where you're thrown into. I mean, I need to keep reading. I need to know what else happens. It seems so cool. And then in the end, you see the god of war. And I do not know this for certain, but I think that there might be a romance between the protagonist and the god of war. That is what I'm hoping. That I feel like that's maybe what this description alluded to. A treacherous attraction ignites right after a sentence about the ruthless god of war. I mean, a girl can dream, right? So I'm pretty sure that this is a romance between her and the god of war, which would be very thrilling. Also, the world sounds so cool, and I love the writing style and the description. I mean, oh my god. So we have a problem because what if, I'm just spitballing here, what if I read all 3 of these? No, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea, because that is how we spend many months reading multiple books at a time and dividing our attention when we could be reading one at a time. Look how gorgeous they are. Also, like, it's just pure coincidence that most of these are special editions, because that is how I obtain most of my fantasy books these days, because a subscription box just... And I mean, look at the selection. These are great. This is actually very funny because I'm going to be doing a video at some point in the future. I just need to plan it. At some point, comparing my Illuminate and Fairy Loot book subscriptions and all of the books I've gotten from them, and if I think it's actually worth it. This is a large point in their favor. Okay, now I need to make a decision which one I'm going to keep reading. Okay, I think I'm gonna take out Watermoon for no fault of its own. This one had the shortest first chapter, and I was very intrigued, but it gave me less to bite down on. So I feel a little bit more secure in leaving this to be read after I read these. So we put one down. And I will make my final choices at the end of this video, depending on how the next batch of books go. Yes. So maybe I'll still cut one of these. For now, these will be my two top choices and the two that I decide to read if the other ones don't pan out and if I don't have a top one from those. Of these two, which one do I need to read right now? You know what? We could make this easier on ourselves. Let's do the shortest one. 360 pages. I think this one's definitely shorter. Yeah, this one's 450. Okay, we're going to definitely keep reading A Dark and Drowning Tide because this is only 360-ish pages. I was completely enamored with the world, and because I am newly getting back into reading a lot of fantasy books, I'm going to ease myself in with a shorter option. So I will see you in the next clip where we will read the remaining 4 books and try a chapter from each of those and see how I feel. If there are any standouts from those, just watch. All 4 of them are going to be amazing, and I'm going to be in a real pickle. I'm going to have tried a chapter from 7 books and be reading 7 books at a time. Don't let me do that. That is how I end up with multiple books on my shelves that I have never finished for no good reason. There are multiple on there that I started years ago and I never finished. Don't let me do that. Okay. All right. See you in the next one. Hello, we are back. So I read the first chapter of Sorcery and Small Magics. At first, when it started off, I wasn't really digging it. It felt just like, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling the writing style. It just was lagging a little bit. The other ones, specifically also comparing it to the other chapters from the other books that I just tried, this one did not throw me into the action. It really was kind of explaining the world a little bit more, and it was just starting off with like a lot more like backstory, and it was only like 13 pages for this chapter. But then towards the end of the chapter, things were happening a little bit. We were introduced to the main character's, not nemesis, but rival. And we got to see a little bit more of the small magics that are occurring in this. So the main character specifically is really endowed with magic, but whenever he tries to use any of his magic, any of his incantations, something goes wrong. He can write spells, but he has a terrible memory with spells, and whenever he tries to do it, something always happens, something gets weird. So there is a moment where he's trying to sneak back into this magical campus. I think it's some kind of magical university that he's attending, and his rival is there, and the two of them are trying to sneak back because the gate has already been locked and it's way after hours. So they have to use some magic to get over the gate and get back onto campus, and things get a little bit funny. They get a little funky. So it was fun. I think I will enjoy this and I will keep reading it at some point, but just in comparison to everything else that I read that really threw me immediately into the world building and the excitement, this one just wasn't as thrilling. So honestly, that is the best case scenario because I need to have some that I can deprioritize from this list. I just read the first chapter, or I think it was the prologue. I read the prologue of The Final Empire, which is the first book in the Mistborn series. This was really good. I started off reading it and I was a little scared I was going to be bored. The first few pages, really unclear what was going to be happening. The world building took a little bit time to really get started. There were like 3 different perspectives. It was kind of all over the place, but it really was just building like the first layer of the foundation of this world. So as I was reading, I became more intrigued, and I really enjoy the writing style. It's not as dense as I was fearing, and there's not a lot of description, which could go either way. but I think it's really well written and it's really straightforward and to the point, and it kind of leaves a lot up to your own imagination. I don't think I'm going to be continuing with this one at this time. It's not as long as I thought it was going to be. It's like 650 pages. For some reason, I thought this was like 900 pages. So for like 650 pages, I think I can really dedicate some time to this in spring, since I feel a lot more hungry to read other books and other ones that have like hooked me a lot faster in the small piece that I read of them, and other books that are shorter, and I feel like I can really build up my appetite for fantasy by reading those that are a little bit lighter on the general story and are lighter in page count, and I can really dip my toe back into the genre slowly rather than going full Brando Sando right from the get-go. So very promising though, and I am really looking forward to reading it when I get to it, and now I actually know what this book is about, which is fascinating. So this is starting off in a fantasy world where there has been ash falling from the sky, and there have been these mists for the last 1,000 years or so, and there's an enslaved population that might be starting a rebellion. And there is this like criminal sleuth schemer character. Unclear if that's what he is. That's what he's giving off right now. And it looks like he has some kind of magical abilities, and that he is going to help kickstart this rebellion. That is all the information I have right now, and I'll be interested to see where it goes from there once I really dive into this. So now we have one book left, and it is this one, and I checked, and the prologue that starts this book off is 35 pages. So I will be saving this for another day. But with that one, that will be the last book that we read for this TBR, and I will be able to tell you the 2 books that I will be reading based off of the Try the Chapter challenge from all of these books. It's been a journey. Hello. It's been some time. Not that you would know. I don't know why I'm confessing this to you, but since we last spoke, I finished A Dark and Drowning Tide. I also finished A Study in Drowning. Was this on this list? No, I read it though. And I have started Watermoon. So it's fine. But today we are finishing this video because I only have one book left. I've clearly already read and enjoyed some of the other books on this list, so am I achieving the goal of the video? Yes and no, but it's fine. So the last book on this list is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I left this to last because for 2 reasons. One, this is quite an anticipated book for me. I've heard amazing things. It sounds very much up my alley. I'm very excited to read this. Also, can we just take a moment to, oh, gorgeous. But also, and this might be the larger reason, because the first chapter is like 35 pages. No, more? The prologue is 39 pages, which is a lot. So I'm going to see how it goes. All of the other chapters were 20 pages or under. I still want to, technically speaking, hold to the try a chapter challenge that we're doing. However, 40-page chapter is kind of ridiculous, especially since Watermoon had a 3-page chapter. So I'm going to shoot for 20. If I'm really digging it, I might shoot for the full 40, and we'll just see how it goes. Because at the end of the day, the only one who's really holding me to this rule is myself, because you're going to be seeing this after the fact. So it's already too late. It's already too late. I've gone one of each way. So let's do it. Hello, I finished half of the prologue. I decided to read up to page 20 because I have a good feeling for this book, and it is a lot slower to get started than the other books that I read for this challenge. But I think for good reason. It's really setting up the world building, and I can tell where this prologue is going, where it's setting up the initial story and how these two characters get into this position. All I know about this book is that it takes place in a fantastical kind of medieval setting world. There is a little bit of magic as far as I know, and the main story is that there is a prince and his bodyguard who's also kind of his doppelganger. Like, he looks like him, and he's trying to save him from an assassination attempt at some point, I think. Right? That's as much as we know. So as I said, it has great setup. You start off, I think maybe like 10 to 12 years in the past, when the prince and this other boy are young. They're both about 12 years old, and the young boy is taken from an orphanage and brought in to basically pretend to be the prince for a night at a really fancy dinner with really important dignitaries from a foreign kingdom that they're trying to form new alliances with. So that's where it starts off, and I think that's how they get into this arrangement, with him being kind of his bodyguard slash his body double in these cases. So it sounds interesting. It is a thick book. Is it like 600 pages? Yeah, it is about 600 pages. So I'm working my way back up into such large fantasy books. So as I mentioned previously, I did finish A Dark and Drowning Tide. I absolutely loved this one. This one was amazing. Then I got started with Watermoon, the cover of which is in my room. And I think after that, I'm going to jump in with The Immortal, or just Immortal? It's either Immortal or The Immortal, which I started and immediately hooked me from the get-go. So I would say that this was a really successful try a chapter challenge, maybe a little too successful, because I was really roped in with a lot of the stories. I don't think there was a single book that I started that I've decided to DNF. Some of them were a little bit slower going that I feel like I can hold off a little bit longer with, but none of them were bad. All of them kept me intrigued. All of them had me wanting to read more, just some a little bit more than others. So thank you so much for joining me for this journey. Let me know if you have read any of these books, if you might try a similar challenge with some books on your TBR. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, please leave a sun emoji or comment the word sun, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!